Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Full Tank Motorcycle Podcast with me, Rob, from the YouTube channel Moto Bob. And as always, I'm joined by Tim. Look, behind me.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see that?
I can. It's blurry, but
KTM.
Yeah, okay. I was trying to guess what it was.
1390 Super Duke R Evo. Just brought it back from KTM yesterday. Absolutely unbelievable. Literally hanging on for dear life. And I think possibly one of the most techie suspension packages ever. I can't wait to get stuck in and review it. But it's crazy how much you can do now with this sort of semi-active electronically adjustable stuff. You can go from firm suspension, and quite sporty, which is kind of how it feels in its default mode. But then you can put it in comfort. I was on the motorway at the sort of end of my ride back, put it in comfort mode, and then also sit the preload down at the back. It's got a high or low automatic setting to chill the geometry of the bike out. If you put it down, obviously the back sits down and it's more raked out then on the fork. Feels a bit more stable, easy to get your feet down. It's many, many bikes in one is basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, KTM could split a crowd on that one, couldn't it? Because it is quite, when they call it a scalpel, I don't know what else to sort of term it, but basically it can give you piles as well, because it is also one of the firmest rides you'll ever find. Most KTMs, they really are on the sporty end of it, which means it's not really built for comfort. But obviously, if you can bounce between the two, then that's the perfect compromise.
In their defense, they have updated their nicknames for their models a little bit. Okay. So the Scalpel, which was the 890 Duke R or 890 Duke, has now become the Sniper as the 990 Duke. So perhaps a little less pile-inducing. And the Super Duke has always been the Beast. Don't know what you make of that, really. But yeah, anyway, at least you got options to play with. Yeah. And it's been pretty fun so far, although I was kind of hanging on for dear life at some points. Anyway, as always, we've got a whole bunch of motorcycle news stories, the best from the industry, as well as getting stuck into our regular slots of Comment of the Week and Bike of the Week. Now, before we get on to the next story, just a massive shout out to this week's pod sponsor, and that's NordVPN. For anyone who's not familiar with a VPN, or if you haven't used one before, it stands for Virtual Private Network, and basically massively increases your security online, which I think it's fair to say, Tim, is something we should all care about these days. Basically, what NordVPN does is reroutes your traffic through a remote server and then encrypts all of your data in the process, which not only means it'll increase your privacy by leaving less of an online footprint, but it also means your ISP or internet service provider isn't able to sell your browsing history to whoever tries to buy it. So a massive win, if you ask me, and that's all for just a few pounds or dollars for our US audience a month. I've been using it for quite a while, actually, because we've partnered with them on the main channel. And especially when you're traveling and you want to feel safe in the knowledge that your data's protected and you're using public Wi-Fi and stuff like that. It's kind of like I use a credit card when I'm abroad because obviously you're a bit more protected. It feels a bit like that to me. I want to make sure that everything is locked down, but also you can access content that wouldn't normally be available in your particular country if you use Nord to connect to a virtual location. So look, we're getting into the race season, mate. There's a certain big race on an island that you can watch for free. I think the highlights. So Nord would be a good way to access some of that content. Anyway, there's a link down in the description of this podcast where you can find out more. And also down there, you'll find a discount code specifically for our viewers. And NordVPN also offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you're not completely happy, then you've got nothing to lose. So once again, a massive thanks to NordVPN for their support. It's a brilliant product and just one less thing to worry about. And with that, on to the next story. First up, mate, there's a new Enfield Rumoured, and it's been spied out testing, and it's going to be called the Guerilla 450. Not gorilla like the animal, like the GUE Rilla type.
Yes, okay.
And they've even copyrighted the name and a logo, which looks very similar to the style of their current logos for bikes like the Hunter and Shotgun and stuff like that. So this one does feel a bit nailed on. It looks like what it's going to be is a naked roadster, but with the Himalayan 450 liquid-cooled single platform. Yeah. And so it'll be something like Triumph's Speed 400 or maybe a Honda CB300 rival to some extent. Husqvarna Vitpillen 401 as well. But for me, it looks quite exciting for a couple of reasons, really. Number one, the Himalayan 450 is way, way better, I think, than their air-cooled bikes. And so it's going to be interesting to see what they do with it on other platforms and applications. But also, the Speed 400, I don't know if I said this on the pod, it was so good when I rode it. It was like a potential Bike of the Year candidate. And so it feels like it'd be nice for it to have some proper competition, because I don't think there's anything like retro-styled, liquid-cooled, 400 single. There's nothing quite the same. The Vitpillen looks more modern. The Honda looks more modern. You know, KTM 390 Duke, very modern-looking bike. Whereas Enfield will do the same sort of retro styling really quite nicely.
Yeah.
So I think it looks quite cool. But the other thing at the same time, mate, is they also listed 12 other new potential model names in their copyright filing. And so I thought we'd have a little rattle through them and see if we can perhaps imagine or guess what some of these bikes might be. So first up, we've got the Royal Enfield Himalayan Sleet and the Royal Enfield Himalayan Tourer. And I'll let you start with the second one.
Tourer? 450. So basically, that's going to be like I was going to say CB. It's the NX 500 now, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be.
The CB 500X kind of, tall, sit up. I mean, we'd both like to see cruise control. Even on a smaller engine, I'd quite like to see cruise control. If you're going to do distance, if it wants to put its money where its mouth is, then cruise control is a must on a bike you go touring on, for me.
But I reckon probably they won't.
Probably they won't.
And they'll just
no one ever does.
Cast wheels.
They should. Yeah.
I agree. It would be so good to see that on a bike like that. But I think it'll be like big windscreen, luggage, maybe cast wheels and make it a bit better on the road. Yeah. But I mean, again, that's quite a big change as well. But yeah, Himalayan Tourer kind of does itself. They've also got Royal Enfield Tourer. Maybe that's just the same bike, copyrighted twice. You know, it's like a shorter name. But with that first one, Royal Enfield Himalayan Sleet.
Yeah, it's a sled. That's clearly a sled. So you can take it out. It's not going to have wheels. It's just going to have tracks and a ski at the front.
Oh, skis.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
That would be amazing.
Skidoo.
I feel like that might be some kind of like special edition. You know, there's the white paint job with like the grey patches on it. I feel like it might just be a paint job or like a special edition like that. Like whited out, maybe. Next up, Royal Enfield Thunderbird.
It's going to be a marionette. It's going to have strings. It's a tiny one. It's a little one for kids.
I see actually on their site, they used to have a Thunderbird 350 and it was a bit of a cruiser style bike. It's now discontinued.
The name does ring a bell for me, actually. Yeah, I do. That does ring a bell. I remember the name Thunderbird.
This is actually maybe one in India, but maybe we haven't had here. But I think it's more cruiser style. Kind of weird because maybe that's been replaced by the Meteor 350 and the Super Meteor. So maybe that's one just protecting their copyright.
Yes.
Royal Enfield Cafe Racer.
I mean, that's...
Don't have to use too much imagination there.
I can't even make a pun out of that one. It's, just strip back. That's quite cool. Yeah.
Royal Enfield Clubman. I mean, Clubman style bars are typically sort of those makeshift cafe racer things. So that'd probably be along the same lines. Kind of interesting, though. We talked recently about the Thruxton being discontinued, the R9T Racer being discontinued. What was the other one we talked about? Ducati Scrambler, they had a cafe racer. That got discontinued because no one wants these uncomfortable bikes. Enfield are keeping going with the Continental GT, and it looks like they might have, unless they are, again, just protecting the names for sort of IP purposes. You know, maybe they'll launch another little 350 or on the 450 Himalayan platform. Yeah. And it's kind of crazy that they're just keeping going with it.
Yeah, but I suppose if other people are abandoning the market, then it only leaves, it's a market of one then, isn't it? So if everyone else left and you were the only ones still doing it, and there was still a market for it, even if it's smaller, then you've got all of the market. Yeah,
potentially. That is a good point. And they specialise in the retro and kind of, old school looking bikes, and a cafe racer is part of that lineup, surely. The other thing is perhaps just Royal Enfield riders are particularly flexible and don't feel the reach down to the bars so badly. And the only way we can prove that is to get 1,000 Royal Enfield riders, 1,000 Triumph riders, 1,000 BMW riders. So we've got big sample size. Who else discontinued? Ducati. 1,000 Ducati Scrambler riders, and just see how many of them can touch their toes. Also, I think maybe my idea for a study, asking people to get off their bike and touch their toes, probably isn't going to go down that well. So, next up, Royal Enfield Trial.
Trial? Ooh.
Let's go. Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be like super stripped back. Very, very light. I like that.
Yes, maybe like a little sort of scrambler type thing. Royal Enfield Trip.
Just for short hops, I guess. Just going to the shops. a space in it for carrying your shopping, or hooks on it for carrying your shopping, or some method of carrying bags from Tesco's.
Could come with like integrated hallucinogenics. Royal Enfield Trip.
Nice.
Or just like a tie-dye inspired paint job. These are the last three. Royal Enfield Cruiser, CURZR. Slightly corny spelling, but we know that's going to be a cruiser-style bike.
Yeah.
Are you a big fan of that spelling or not?
The noise probably gave it away now.
Yeah.
I think that dates
I could
badly.
hear you physically cringing. Royal Enfield, like these are the last two. Royal Enfield Thunderbird Logout and the Royal Enfield Logout.
What's a logout? It's like logging out of a computer. Turning it off? I don't know. What is that reference to bikes? That's not from their historical archives, then I take it.
What if people who don't like the new phone connectivity and TFT display on the Himalayan 450 can just buy a log-out version where instead of that TFT, you just get a very simple analog clock?
Oh, yeah. Like getting off the grid.
Imagine a log-out edition.
Getting off the grid, yeah. Leave your phone at home.
I just don't want any.
That's the idea of biking anyway, right? To just sort of get out and forget all the other crap that goes with life. Yeah, no, it's nice. All right. I'm on board with that.
I actually think for some people that would actually be quite appealing. Yeah, definitely a lot of people comment on the channel when it's a techie bike saying, forget all this stuff and having notifications on the screen. I got on my bike to get away from that. So let us know in the comments if you're watching on the YouTube version. Would you buy a log-out version of your bike? Anyway, that's the 12. Some interesting stuff. So also let us know if you're listening or watching, which of those are you most excited about? I think for me, honestly, the Himalayan was a little bit vibey for touring, so I'd like to see that addressed. Given how much I really liked the Husqvarna, remember, I always go on about this, Vitpillen 701. I think a little cafe racer 450 Enfield with that would be a liquid-cooled single as well, with a sporty riding position, although it wouldn't be super comfortable, would be a lot of fun. So that would be my pick. Anything tickle your fancy there?
And obviously, apart
probably
from
the log out.
Yeah, no, I've already got a log out. I've got a Ducati log out. That's as analog as it gets. Yeah, no, I think for me it would be it can be really boring. Can I say the Guerilla, even though that's not one of these sort of. Yeah. I'm going to go with that one. I mean, it's obviously not confirmed yet, so I think that one just because I rode the Hemi the other day actually for the first time. Just
you
up
did?
and down. It not extensively, but enough to kind of get a feel for how different it is from the previous. And yeah, nice upgrade. Yeah, noticeable improvement on power and stuff. It feels appropriate now, and it feels competitive, and still feels pretty good, pretty analog. I think for me, I'd want it, just as light as I can get it, really, because it is a relatively light bike, I suppose. There's not too much complication to it. But, it's the same with Triumph, really. Triumph and Royal Enfield are always on the heavier side of what they really should be for the bike that they are, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say...
built to a price, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it was really nice. I was pleasantly surprised and impressed by it. I'd probably say, the Guerilla for me, if they did a flat track version. So if one of those names suited like a flat track version, then
ooh, that'd be
great.
cool. Are you doing a longer review or anything for Urban Rider, or is that not really in the works?
If time allows. Yeah, we want to. It is literally just finding time at the moment. But yeah, the aim is.
That would be cool. I'd love to see your extended thoughts. One other question as well. Did you find the side stand quite short and therefore slightly nerve-wracking when you put it on the stand?
Short? I found the side stand, the arm on that side stand was massive.
But it really leans over when you put it on the stand, and that makes it feel heavier than it is, especially if it's full of fuel.
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean.
So you have to really yank it up.
I do remember it just surprised me. I sort of looked down and was like, what the? This thing is really long.
I guess it's because it's a tall bike. It's got decent ground clearance. And so it needs to be quite long. But I was thinking I'd maybe even get an extension to make it even longer.
To be fair, yeah, I mean,
It doesn't sound like that's echoed in your thoughts.
It wasn't noticeable to me. It didn't highlight to me. But yeah, obviously you're going to park it on places that are less even, most likely. So yes.
That's me, mate. I'm a connoisseur of the uneven and potholed laybys of the United Kingdom, because that's where I stop for thumbnail pictures, do a bit of Insta, get some cutaways for the review and stuff. And that's one of the reasons why, for example, much to your dismay, I always leave bikes in gear, because I always end up parking them somewhere really uneven and I don't want them to roll off the stand. Yes. But anytime I go out with someone and swap bikes, they're like, can you just stop leaving it in gear? But it's, that's part of my life, mate, is just sort of visiting those weird and wonderful sides of the road across the country. Anyway, on to the next one. 2040 petrol motorcycle ban expected. This one's from Visor Down. We'll link to some of the stories that we're covering in the description below. So do check out some of these sites. And this one is yet to be confirmed, they say. But apparently industry sources are suggesting the UK government is currently finalising plans to move the country away from petrol bikes by preventing sales of new petrol bikes from 2040. And I don't think this is particularly like new news. We always know that something like this will be on the horizon and follow after cars are sort of meant to go through the same situation. But of course, the idea is it's part of the government's commitment to net zero targets by 2050. Now, Visor Down is saying that it will probably be a phased approach. So by 2030, no new L1 motorcycles to be sold, and we'll get onto what that means in a moment. By 2040, no new L3 and up motorcycles to be sold. I then had to go and Google what L1 and L3 specifically means. L1 is light two-wheel powered vehicles, including mopeds. L3 is all two-wheel motorcycles that aren't the light ones. So basically that means little motorcycles by 2030, which makes sense, right? Because electric bikes are already more competitive, let's say, with that smaller capacity end of the market where you're just using them around town. They're low powered, so they're not chomping through the battery so quickly. And also, realistically, on those small bikes, you're more likely to be doing short journeys where you can charge up more often. So it seems more achievable. By 2040, though, all bikes, I mean, firstly, my career now has an end date. I need to figure out a way to retire by then. Yeah. And this podcast may have to morph into some weird sort of electric motorcycle situation. Yeah. But it does beg the question, mate, like, if in 2040 you can no longer buy a petrol bike, what are you going to do? Are you going to hang on to the bike you've got, your Monster, and keep it going for as long as humanly possible? Are you going to, on the last day that you can buy a new bike, just buy a brand spanking new, so you'll probably get as much life out? I mean, that might see you to the grave. Sorry, it's a bit morbid, but potentially if you buy something reliable, thinking of Yamaha, or do you just give up biking, or do you just accept it and start riding electric bikes?
No, I think for me, I did the maths in my head. I'm assuming most people listening to this are probably doing the maths in their head now. How old am I going to be at 2040? And I think I'm 53 was what I worked out. So 53, now I've still got a lot of biking in me, and my dad's still going into his 60s, so I'd be sad to kind of give it up completely. But then he is now, and I think this is true of a lot of people when they get to his age, and they've got more space to do it. You just collect and amass bikes, and he's doing that at a rate of knots. Some of them aren't even rideable. So I think for me, I'll probably, because I am my father's son, end up just collecting old tat like he has, and probably keep that Ducati. That Ducati will be in pieces, and it'll be that project where I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get it back on the road, and I never will.
Sounds somewhat familiar.
Yeah, most likely. I think that's the most likely scenario for me. But to be fair, it's a long time for them to improve the current spread or span of electric bikes, really, and give us something that really does pose a decent alternative. Because like you say, the one that makes the most sense and why they're doing it earlier is the smaller bikes completely. I see that one, and you could do that, not now exactly, but very, very soon you could probably get away with doing that.
Totally.
But yeah, the bigger bikes are the ones that pose a bit more of a complication. So we'll see. How about you?
I don't know, mate. not sure I believe people when they say they'll just give up biking, because I think human beings are always going to want to catapult themselves at high speeds around the roads, or, you know, it's just like anything like that. G-forces, adrenaline, be it bungee jumping, roller coasters, skydiving, driving fast cars, riding fast bikes, even on a push bike, like descending quickly is exciting and fun. And I think people are always going to want to do that. And faced with, you know, the option of just not biking or riding something electric, which clearly in 15 years is going to be a lot more appealing. Sure. It'll have better range, better battery, be better to ride, should be lighter, there'll be more charging. And hopefully they find some way to make them as interesting and characterful. You know, I think that's still going to be probably acceptable to a lot of people. Yeah,
I mean, exactly. If that's your only option, then they're not a bad option. They're really not that bad. It's just they need to iron out a few of the finer details like range and charging and stuff like that. But they've got time to do it, so we'll see.
I would miss the sort of variety, I suppose. I guess like riding bikes, one of the most interesting things to talk about and reviewing them is the engine and how it feels, and the kind of soul of it, and the way it makes you feel connected to the bike, and the sound obviously is one big thing that people would miss. But yeah, maybe there'll be more variety in the ways that they can be propelled, hopefully. In the meantime, make the most of your time with internal combustion vehicles, and consider that Ducati and Porsche are about to collaborate on an experience day. So you can go out to Italy, I believe. And, well, they're kind of billing it as this like dream track experience. So in the morning, you can ride the Ducati range. It says with the exception of the Panigale family, so that's a shame. It'll be more like Street Fighters, I guess, and stuff like that. And then in the afternoon, jump into a Porsche. So a 911 Carrera, a Boxster or a Cayman, and they've even got some Cayennes as well. And you basically rattle around the track and get a little bit of instruction and advice and teaching from some proper good riders. These Ducati experience days get kind of phenomenal guys in, and you get to ride their bikes, and it is like, they're super expensive, but I do believe they're right up there, you know, in terms of like the VIP treatment on a track day, and they just give you the works. Now, this does sound quite cool. It's just a one-off. I guess if they do really well out of it, they'll do more of them. But I was thinking, mate, would you rather just do a track day on a Ducati, or does this actually sound better, or do you think you'd be overwhelmed?
Yeah.
With trying to master like track motorcycle riding and then jump into a car, and then a bloke's like telling you how to kind of drive faster, and you're probably going to have to forget everything that you've just been told in the morning.
Sure. I've got, my other question for you was, do you feel like this is the right way around to do it? Like, would you rather go bike first, car second, or car bike?
Okay, purely from a safety perspective, I'd go bike first, car second, because if anything goes wrong, I'd rather, you know what I mean? I'd like to get on the bike with a clear mind, enjoy that, and then do the car thing. And if I have some kind of like brain blockage / cognitive mix-up, I'd rather be in an airbag metal box. But I don't know, have you ever had that thing where you are on one form of transport and then you get into another, ideally you're operating it, and you get mixed up? Like, one thing I do quite a lot is if I'm out biking in the day, working, filming a motorbike ride, sometimes I'll go for a bicycle ride in the evening, but I can't stop nodding at bikers coming past the other way, and they must feel like, come on, mate, that's not a motorbike, that's pathetic.
Yeah, that's good.
I've done that a lot.
Yeah, you're right, mate.
Have you ever done that?
Yeah, so I get a bit confused. Yeah, there's like a crossed wire in my head when I see like a classic car, and again you sort of go, all right, mate, and you're like, no, wait, we're not in the same club. I've mistaken something here. Yeah, so I think for me it's the right way around as well. I think I would want to go bike first when I've got all the concentration and energy to do it, and then obviously if you're going to switch over, go into a car in the second half of the day. So my worry would be I'd probably prefer to do it like split over 2 days and just separate the two completely.
I think it depends on whether you want a fancy experience to go and tell everybody about at work when you get back to work on the Monday, or whether you genuinely want to get better at motorcycle riding or car driving on track. If you did, you'd probably be better off doing something separate. It still sounds phenomenal though, and I do get the appeal of. Also, I remember it's been a while since I've done a press launch, but there is this strange feeling sometimes when you've been on a motorcycle launch, and if there's been a bit of track and then road riding and you've been doing quicker speeds, sometimes you do that all day, go out for a couple of beers, get on the plane in the morning, go and pick your car up at the airport. And it's such a strange sensation to get back in the car if you've been doing like 2 or 3 days of riding. It does feel slightly unnatural, but also I find like everything feels super slow as well. 70 on the motorway feels like 30 because you've just been hooning around. So yeah, anyway, I think I don't want to have excluded myself from an invite to this. I doubt it's a big long shot.
So when I see you in 2 weeks
if
and you're wearing a Ducati hat and a Porsche t-shirt, I'm not going to ask her how your weekend was. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, if anyone from Ducati Italy press team or Porsche is listening, which is, I'd say, very, very small chance of that happening. But ignore everything I've just said. I think it sounds like a fantastic idea, and I'd just love to experience it. Yeah. Anyway, we're on to comment of the week, mate. And we had a few back, actually. We were talking about some of the retro paint jobs that we'd like to see coming in on current bikes, like this sort of new penchant for colourful 80s and 90s paint jobs. We were looking at the XSR 900 in that sort of body kit and saying we like the sort of more popping vibe, and we asked for suggestions of what paint jobs from the past people would like to see on the current bikes. Now, Fat Booster Racing 1347 chipped in with a great idea, because you know they've done that 25th anniversary Hayabusa that's orange and black. I think we featured that, and we saw it at Motorcycle Live as well, didn't we?
Yeah.
Looked very cool, I thought.
Yeah, no, it does actually. It is one of those bikes that you sort of maybe not aspire to own. It's a curiosity breed, isn't it? It's one of those things that you are curious of. Yeah, it's good. It draws a crowd.
I would
as
say
well.
Careful what you say, because judging by Fat Booster Racing's username, I'd say they're a big Booster fan.
No, I like him. I'm just saying, like, it draws in a crowd, I think. It genuinely, you know, walking around Motorcycle Live, it is one of those bikes that had a lot of people around it.
It did indeed, mate. Anyway, Fat Booster Racing's suggestion is not the orange one, but also to go with the original copper colour scheme, which I've linked to in the script there, mate, so you can check it out. I'm sure you remember that anyway. That's kind of an iconic paint job, isn't it? And I think that's a good shout. Like, I think, although I like the orange one, I get that a nod to the 25th anniversary of the bike would be to put the first paint job on the current iteration. Then you've got both, you know, you've got the modern technology and build with some of the aesthetics of the first ever. Yeah. And I like that juxtaposition. So I give that suggestion an A, maybe an A+.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I'm going to rate that as an A. I really like the sort of clearly metallic finish to it, and I'd want to call it like a champagne contrasting colour with it as well. But yeah, it's very, very nice. Very good.
I think that's accurate, mate. I'd definitely call that champagne and copper. Mivids 9254 suggests a 92 or 93 blade scheme, and it would look sweet on a newer machine. 2 links for you here, mate. There is, I think, one that does look a bit like this already, but one that I really love is the white sort of base paint with the purple and pink on top of it. That just looks phenomenal to me. I'd love to see that on a bike.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had a shell suit that was that colour in the 90s. Pretty confident about it.
Pretty sure. You've still got it, probably.
Yeah.
That's a shame. I would love to see that, mate. And then the second link is the black base paint with a sort of red, purple and silver paint job. And if you like the more stealthy but still with a popper colour, that is one cool looking bike in my opinion. I absolutely love that. And again, I'd love to see it. Thoughts on that one?
I prefer the first one. I think the white sort of allows it to stand out maybe a little bit more. But yeah, I can see the appeal. Still very nice.
Well, that's typical extrovert behaviour there, mate. Just riding around on a white bike to stand out. Yeah. Exactly what I'd expect of you.
I have been accused of being an extrovert on many occasions, yeah. Attention seeking.
Last up, David Collins 6519 says it's the red for me. I've got a picture of those two side by side, those body kits that we talked about. And his rationale is that the blue GP looks too much like a Rothman's Honda. Who the F wants a Yamaha to look like a Honda? And I'd say that's fair. Probably the red is more in keeping with your typical Yamaha scheme. Who chose which last time? You chose the blue, didn't you?
Yeah,
I chose red.
Went for the blue, yeah, and I stand by it. You can
all right,
quote me
well,
on that one.
thanks, David, for backing me up. Anyway, next up we got Bike of the Week, and this one's slightly unusual. Might not be my normal choice, but with Bike of the Week, we always try and celebrate the wild and wacky and maybe sort of just praise the ambition of motorcycle designers and customizers. And this one jumped out on Cycle World. I've seen this a few weeks back. I saw the concept actually, but I think now they've actually announced this production version. And you've got to say, just for a production bike coming out of a Chinese brand, it does look at least a bit innovative. A lot of the Chinese bikes maybe feel a bit copycat sometimes, but this genuinely looks a bit wild. Now, unfortunately, it's from BENDA, BENDA. So, but this one's called the Napoleon 250, and it's a little 250 V twin. And it looks quite a lot. Do you remember the V-twin Enfield KX concept? Did you ever see that? I think they released it at EICMA a few years back, didn't they? Wow, what a cool looking bike that was. And this is basically, it looks a bit similar.
Do you know what else it puts me in mind of? Is the Triumph Bobber, when they first brought it out and they did all the engineers get a chance to sort of free rein, design what you want. And they made one with cantilever suspension like that on the front. I think the air intakes were like mounted the opposite way round, maybe even. But yeah, they'd done some very, very trick things with that one.
Is this, I think this was back when they originally thought up the TFC, Triumph Factory Custom scheme. Is that right? I think that's right. Basically, TFC are like their special performance models. Yeah. But they did a build-off in the factory for the first ever TFCs, and it was a scrambler and a bobber. Yes, that is in fact correct. And I remember the one you mean. It does look absolutely wild, and I think it's not even on the current bobber engine. It's like a the air-cooled generation just before it. But it's a phenomenal looking bike that just shows, like you say, what they can do when they go a bit wild. But I think that's the impressive thing about the BENDA Napoleon 250 is that they've got something there that looks like a custom bike, like it's a one of one, and yet I believe it is, production ready. Now, as for the fork, you've actually hit upon the main talking point of this bike. Apart from having a 250 V-twin, which is super cool, but the fork, if you look at the picture, you can actually see there's a regular fork inside there. Can, and then on the outside, you've got these kind of weird legs with some extra little springs. And those extra springs are adjustable and they give it some extra damping. Right. And instead of compressing, instead of pushing, it's more the pull action, I believe, of the spring. Okay. As it pulls, it kind of helps to damp it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's not something I've ever seen before on a bike, and I'm, doubtful it has any particular performance benefits. I mean, it's going to make it twice as heavy, I assume, the suspension unit at the front.
I feel if it did have any actual benefit, it would have been designed. Maybe this is just my sort of arrogance of elitism, but I feel like maybe someone like BMW would have come out with that already if that actually had some genuine function.
Yes, agree. I mean, they kind of have had forks that look like that. Like on the K series. I don't know exactly what that's called. I can't remember. But this just feels like a bit of a mix of the two, and surely the downside is it'll feel super weighty on the steering. But still, you got to say, for a little small bike, it looks absolutely phenomenal. It's pretty cool. Apart from the huge logo on the side of the tank.
You'd have to paint it immediately and just be like, oh, it's a custom job. I made it myself.
Yes, that's probably your only way out, mate. I also had another candidate for Bike of the Week, which I didn't quite include, but I want to show it up anyway, just because we've got the Bike Shed show coming, and some of the builds that I've seen getting ready for the show on Instagram are really quite cool. Let's have a little look at Sticky's Speed Shop. They've had some amazing builds in the past. It's a Ducati 900 SS, but if you just flick through the paint job on there, it's basically neon pink, fading into blue with glossy, I guess, vinyl, or are they masked off? Lightning bolts all over it. And this is definitely playing into this much more vibrant colour schemes that we're seeing on custom bikes and that sort of 80s and 90s influence.
This is like
a fan
dictionary
or not?
definition of vibrant. Oh, it's still a little early to say. It's quite blocky. I'm going to say with the shapes that they've gone for on it, that's what's kind of halting me at the moment, is how blocky it is. And it does play into the XSR 900 a little bit, you know, with the pillion seat, or the hump at least.
Tail unit.
It's got a similar kind of shape to it, which I'm not necessarily always a fan of. Do love the colour scheme though. That is something eye-catching at the very least. Yeah, when you're going to go loud, you can't sort of half-farce it. You've really got to go in for it and commit, and they really have committed to that. So I think that's it's impressive. I'll wait to see it in the flesh.
I think that one's going to look phenomenal. I can't wait to see it at the show. And so that'll be our next episode after this one. So yes, please do keep your eyes peeled. We'll get that up as quickly as possible after the show. Anyway, I think that rounds us off for today. So a massive thanks to everybody for listening. If you're listening on audio, please do also consider heading over to our YouTube channel if you want to see the full episode with the visuals. And also do leave a comment to let us know what you think of this week's stories. And of course, we'll be pulling out some for Comment of the Week next week. Once again, a huge thanks for your support, and we'll see you next time.